1 year ago, we finally decided what we were going to call our new podcast, Spiraling Up. But getting to that decision and all the work that we've put in since then has been a lot. Planning episodes, finding guests, finding out creative games. A lot of you may be wondering, was it worth it? Well, in today's episode of Spiraling Up, we're going to take a look back at everything that we did this year, and we're going to talk about our favorite moments, our favorite guests, but ultimately we're going to discuss, was it worth it? And what does it mean to start a business podcast in 2026 and beyond? Welcome everyone. This is Spiraling Up with Hinge. Welcome everyone to Spiraling Up, the podcast for professional services, marketers, and leaders. My name is Austin, and as always, I am joined by my colleagues and co-hosts, Mary. Joe, we have no Mary Blanche today. Where's Mary Blanche?
We have no Blanche. No, we do not have Mary Blanche, but we do have someone. We have producer John.
Producer John. Hey, John, welcome to the podcast.
What's up, guys? This is going to be fun.
This will be fun. Joe, welcome to the podcast. John, welcome to the podcast. This is our kind of end of the year episode here as we close out and look back at what was a great first year. John, we're really excited. You know, you've been super involved in what we're doing. You're the perfect candidate to kind of help us look back at a great year of what has been, you know, a new initiative for us on the Hinge front. So I'm excited to get into our episode. I want to thank all of our listeners who are watching on YouTube. Please help us out by liking and subscribing to the episode and to the channel. And to those who are listening on audio format, thank you so much for downloading the episode. We're happy you're here as well. Leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to. And everybody can always send us a message at podcast@hingemarketing.com. Send us your feedback, comments, questions. If you've got an idea for a great guest or a great topic, we would love to hear from you. Joe, I want to start with you and just, where were we a year ago in terms of this idea and what we're doing?
We were a couple beers and baskets of queso and chips deep. That's in right. Terms of this being a vision. What we had noticed looking at things like high growth research, something that anybody who's listened to the show is well aware of, that we spent a lot of time looking at it, as well as seeing across the marketplace, there was a space for professional services focused content in the audio and video realm. And we, as a group that spends all of this time and effort creating information, wanted to be able to capture that space. We wanted to be able to put information out into that arena. So John and I, like I joked at, we'd met up and had a few conversations about this. And Austin, as our de facto host in chief, I know you and I had also looked at potential ways where we could expand upon what is our webinars, for example. Like Hinge does webinars, right? So what's other avenues we can capture interest in entertainment? So yeah, a year ago we're sitting around and it's time to put some rubber to the road, right? We're starting to think through exactly how this format would work and so forth. And John linked up with us and we went through months in a sense of prep to get this off the ground. We went through targeting of audiences, titles, creative, all the different types of elements you would consider as part of a larger marketing campaign, because that's what this is. It's a larger marketing campaign. We're not just putting content out in audio form or video form. We're creating shorts and social posts and things along those lines. So this became an initiative from the Hinge perspective. So a year ago, though, we were in our infancy. A better way of thinking about it.
Well, what I hear you saying, Joe, is, you know, a year ago we were in the plan of weaving this into our strategy, right? I think one of the things that will come out during this episode is just a look back at a lot of the creativity that we brought to the table, and that wasn't by accident. That was actually very intentional. I remember a year ago when Joe and John kind of presented this idea to me and kind of a pitch to me to be a part of, you know, hey, let's get a Hinge podcast going again. My first thought was, there are a lot of boring marketing podcasts out there. Yep. And if we're going to do it, I at least want to take a stab at doing something with a little bit more of a creative flair, if not just for engaging the audience and showing our personality a little bit, but for our guests as well. I mean, we talk to a lot of really intelligent, smart people who have been on a lot of podcasts before. And as we engage with them directly, we want to be memorable. We want to be interesting. We want them to have fun and kind of, maybe let their guard down a little bit and share a little bit, of a deeper insight into what they bring to the table and their personality. And I think when we look back, we're going to see that. John, what do you remember from those early stages? And when you host and help start dozens of podcasts at this point. Like, what is the key part of that strategy phase there at the beginning?
Well, if I'm looking back about a year ago, we were going through kind of answering questions like, what are some of the marketing goals? Why this podcast? Why now? How does this connect to the strategy for Hinge? And I believe even Spiraling Up wasn't even our first name choice. I think we went through a process, and I'm actually really, really glad we landed on Spiraling Up. I think it's perfect. But it is a process to get a show launched. But I think what really made it real was when we produced a pilot episode, and then everyone kind of watched it for the first time, and then that kind of got all the creative juices flowing, and then it suddenly became real to everyone. And I think that was just kind of like a really cool moment going through that. And then over the course of the last year, it's been fantastic being kind of like behind the scenes, watching every single episode, going through, helping create it with you guys. And it's been a fantastic to see the growth of all three of you as hosts, and it's really cool to see that growth. And I'm sure that you'll see it in some of the clips that we'll share on this episode of like, oh man, was that really me? And how far we've come. So this is gonna be fun.
You guys want to hear a few of the names that didn't make the cut? I just pulled up our working document.
I don't know if I do, but yeah, let's hear it.
Well, the other one that almost got there was Pivotal Pursuit. I don't know if you all remember that, the play on the game Trivial Pursuit. That one was pretty close there in the short list, but a few of the other review ones were The Marketing Tap, because of course, Marketing Untapped.
Marketing Untapped.
Yeah. Spiraling Out, which of course I still am dreaming as our alternative podcast where we may or may not enjoy a beverage or two. And then a few others, The Pivotal Plays, Marketing Recess, and Not Another Marketing Podcast.
Which I think actually exists already. I think there's already someone with that name.
Good idea for them.
I think my first name idea was literally the Professional Services Marketing Podcast, but everybody thought I was boring and not fun enough. But
You're the one who said you wanted it to not be boring, right?
I know, but I wanted to have a boring name.
The irony in that, right?
No, I wanted to have a specific name, good for discoverability and search. But anyway, I digress. Actually, John, you're the one that kind of curated this for us, and Joe and I are going to kind of react and let you lead the conversation in terms of kind of what we learned and kind of how we felt along the way. Again, shout out to Mary Blanche, who couldn't be on this episode, but she's been such a big part of this podcast. And so
absolutely,
Joe and I will be doing everything we can to channel kind of her wisdom and insight along the way. So John, why don't you kick us off? What you've got the reins now, my friend.
In preparation for this episode, Austin, I was going back and digging through the archives and the back catalog of episodes to try to find the best moments. And I thought, what better way than to start in one of the early episodes? I think it was episode 3, where we used the 2025 high growth study data to inform a marketing tactics draft. So we're going to go and we're going to watch this video. I would love to get your reactions to it. And then knowing what you know today, and maybe based on some early indicators that you're getting from the 2026 high growth study, how would you have reordered your first round picks? Or maybe there is a different one that you would have picked in the first place.
Okay,
so
interesting.
Let's dive in and get your reactions.
Great. And while you pull that up, John, I'll say that I'm already very excited for our 2026 marketing tactics draft, and maybe we'll be able to loop in some more guests and team members into that, more teams this year. I don't know. We'll see.
Can we just remark at how sharp that fade was by me? I mean, I like the barber went nuts on that. But all right, go ahead.
All right, here we go. Here's our first clip. Look back at the best of 2025 from the Spiraling Up podcast.
All right, guys. Here is our draft board.
Wow, you put this together?
Yeah, shout out to your maker.
This is nice.
This is
Colors
great,
on
right?
brand. I love it.
Great. Well, look, in a randomly selected draft order, MB,
Wait.
you get the first pick of today's marketing draft. So the first overall pick, always lots of pressure. What are you gonna choose?
Okay, let me see. All right, for my first round pick, I am going to go with networking at targeted events and conferences.
All right. Networking and targeted conferences is off the board.
I'm bummed. It was absolutely what I was looking for. I mean, might have been lucky to see it fall to. I'm guessing you're making me 3 in this random order. Am I right?
Yeah, actually, yes, you are right.
I can see it already on the screen.
So with the second overall pick in this 2025 marketing draft, I'm going to select conducting and publishing primary research. All right, Joe, it's on to you now.
Well, thanks for giving me this opportunity, Austin. Third doesn't necessarily mean that I'm out of the running. For my first round pick and the third overall pick, I will be selecting keyword research and search engine optimization.
All right.
So SEO is not dead, and it is my first pick. SEO is still not dead. They are really trying to kill it, though.
Some might say it's dead, but we know it's not. All right, gentlemen. So first of all, Joe, do you still think that draft order was rigged?
Yes, it was absolutely rigged.
Do you have any evidence to the fact that it was rigged, or is it just a feeling?
I knew it was rigged because we have the ability for me to look back at the show notes and see that it was rigged.
There's no hiding anything from you, Joe. All right, knowing what you guys know today, looking back, you've lived through 2025. Would you have picked something new? How would you have reordered these first 3 picks? What would you have picked today if this was if you could go back in time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I knew I was going to pick the conducting and publishing research. That's what we do at Hinge. That's what drives our success and reputation in our marketing program at Hinge. I was never going to not pick that unless that's what MB had picked. However, she took networking at targeted conferences and events, and having lived through 2025, I would say she made the best possible first pick.
Good value.
Not only have we had a lot of success meeting people this year at a number of different conferences and events, but our data is actually suggesting that 2026, the upcoming year, it's going to be the year of event success. All of the new high growth study data that I'm seeing is showing that marketing impact for professional services is heavily driven by success at events, and that up to 10, maybe even more % of just like overall leads that come to a firm come through the way that they handle their event strategy. So not only that, I just think that everyone is so saturated with online content these days that we really have to be, regardless of what industry you're in, we have to be thinking about how are we out there building relationships. That was a big theme that I learned a lot from some of our guests on the podcast this year. How are we building relationships? How are we being physically present? Getting to know people, not just in a business context, but actually getting to know them more as human beings. So I think, first of all, MB made the best possible first selection there. But then I back up my pick too.
Would you throw something at number 3, Austin? Would you change what I put in there?
Yeah, I think search, if you're a company that has not invested traditionally in search, it's really hard to get started now. It's not that you shouldn't start, you should always start, right? If your website is not optimized for search, get it optimized, work with the specialist who knows what they're doing, and start building, a content program that gets there. Clearly, this is a space that's changing a lot, so we're needing to supplement a little bit more with like a paid ad strategy more today than we used to. But yeah, Joe, if I had to pick like a number like 3, I probably would have gone more down the lines of something like speaking at events. I know that's kind of a cop out, but there's just something to being present and kind of in that place of authority. I know we talked about that in that episode. The other thing that I think is just like kind of missing from a lot of marketing programs that I see today is like a really intelligent way of using their call to action strategy, like providing assessment consultations and those kinds of things. Cold outreach is not what I'm suggesting from that, but it's like, how do all of your marketing materials and even like your event strategy, what is like the actual call to action that you're arriving to an event with? And when I talk with a lot of clients or I conduct a lot of marketing audits, I see companies are spending huge parts of their marketing budget. Like in some cases, like 90% of their marketing budget is going to an event strategy. And when I ask, like, okay, so what is the goal? Like, what is the call to action? Like, how are you collecting information or business cards or whatever? A lot of times people still have a hard time answering that questions concretely. So I think some sort of like assessment or consultation strategy, like a really like a call to action strategy is what I would put high on the list.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with a lot of the sentiments that you just shared there, Austin. The event thing is so key. I mean, we did break up in these tactic options the idea of both speaking versus networking and things along those lines. So in general, the first overall pick based off what the data has said, and certainly with the research that we've now seen in a few years running in the high growth study, is that having a solid targeted event strategy is imperative in professional services. We had the episode a few weeks ago, a month or two ago, with Teal and team when we, myself and Mary Blanche, visited them in Texas, and we talked about the Hilton Trends report, which really did emphasize this shift in mindset of people and how folks are not only like looking at events as a professional experience, but also a personal experience. Like folks are looking for opportunities to blend work more than ever in terms of what their actual day-to-day is. And so they're turning conferences and things into vacations and trips. And so the idea here is we were all locked away for years, and that sucked. It's the best way of saying it. And now we actually have an opportunity to go out and interact with the types of folks that we do business with or that we learn from and things along those lines. And it has come roaring back as a key piece for organizations that are marketing and branding themselves appropriately. So yeah, I'm all in on that being number one. I'm not surprised that you haven't changed yours, Austin, in terms of conducting and publishing primary research. That is Hinge's brand. So we are firm believers in the idea that if you put insight and information out that's data backed, you're going to be more successful. I would say I still like keyworded and targeted SEO strategy, but having seen really truly what Google is doing using their AI tools, as well as all the other major search platforms and things along those lines, it is something that, like you said, it's just extremely difficult to try to spin up and get rolling and all of those types of things. So I could see email, and we've had significant success with Hinge's newsletter pivot and being able to bring in visibility through that as a tool. I could see email climbing a little bit further up this list. And then some of those conversion tactics, things like providing assessments and consultations, things along those lines, absolutely could squeeze its way into this top 3 list.
All right, John, what's next on the list for us to react to here as we do our look back at 2025?
All right. Yeah. So, by the way, my first round pick would have been podcasting, but that's neither here nor there.
Surprise.
All right. All right. So, one of my absolute favorite episodes that we did this year was the Intern Jeopardy episode with Sabrina.
Miss Sabrina.
And she was fantastic.
She's so good.
And so I wanted to bring this back for a few different reasons. Number one, I just want to show that we have lots of fun on this podcast. And number two, we can still make marketing fun through these games. So that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to share this. But probably the biggest is you've all really embraced this idea of entertainment value on the podcast. And so I'd love for us to watch this video, react to it, and then I would love to hear from both of you why you think that entertainment value is so important in marketing.
Today's categories are Everything Sabrina, Data Due Diligence, Marketing Mayhem, Content's New Frontier, Hinge story, and lastly, marketing jargon. Austin, how about we kick it over to you to start us off?
All right, I'll take marketing jargon for 300, Sabrina.
You would go to the middle of the board.
This critical component of a brand is not the entire brand itself, nor a portrait of the business, yet it plays a key role in identification, differentiation, and aiding recall. Austin?
What is a logo?
That is correct. What is a logo? Austin, it's still yours.
I'll go for marketing mayhem for 400.
This practice refers to maximizing the reach, impact, and efficiency of their content investment. Oh, it looks like we have a tie, but Austin took the lead. Austin, this one's yours.
What is ROI?
I'm sorry, but that was incorrect. Joe?
What a brutal buzzer. Well, that was what I was going to guess, so I'm just going to go ahead and pass at this point. It's very... Oh, I still get it wrong? That's not fair.
Okay, time's up. The answer for this is what is repurposing?
Wow.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Austin, it's technically still yours.
Okay, we'll go to marketing mayhem for 500.
This top marketing priority for high growth firms in 2025 focuses on distancing themselves from competitors in the minds of target buyers. Austin?
What is differentiation?
That is correct. What is brand differentiation?
How
All
is your
we're-
internet better than mine?
We're,
And you're in
all the way
Brazil.
from Brazil. The internet's better.
Back to you.
Let's go to Hinge story for 100.
Beyond the Salt Lake City Winter Olympics and the debut of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, this pivotal moment also happened in 2002. Joe?
What is the founding of Hinge or the creation of Hinge?
That is correct. When was Hinge founded?
On the board, baby.
Man.
Joe, it's yours.
Oh, we'll do 200, same category.
Daily
Yes.
double.
And I can't just bet up to 1,000.
This classic toy figurine was the unofficial mascot of Hinge early on in the agency's development.
What is Scuba Steve?
That is correct. Ooh,
Okay, so we're not
MB,
doing daily
MB, you
double.
knew that one.
No, I did, but I thought I thought the daily double was where you you
But
write
if
your
you get
answer.
to
No, that's Final Jeopardy.
no, that's Final Jeopardy.
Oh gosh, see you guys, I don't even know. Okay, let's just keep going.
It's just
who
like-
is Scuba Steve is correct.
Oh yeah, who is whatever. Got it.
R.I.P.
Alright.
Scuba Steve.
Yeah.
Joe, this one's yours.
Let's do Hinge story for 500.
Wow, skipping ahead.
This lightly sweetened whipped French treat is also the namesake of the town in which Hinge originated. Austin?
I shouldn't have buzzed in. What is Chantilly?
That is correct. What is
Oh my
Chantilly?
gosh. Chantilly, Virginia. What
Dude,
is that
oh.
a thing? Ice cream or French? Like, what is that?
Dude.
It's like sweetened whipped cream.
Sabrina also gave us the added advantage of the fact that she went back to school shortly after that in Nashville at Vanderbilt, and she did a significant amount of promotion of that episode, and ended up being one of our better ones because of, frankly, it captured interest from a variety of different channels that we don't typically speak to.
It was entertaining, and just watching that clip, I mean, it's captivating, right? It's like you're watching a game show, but we're learning about marketing at the same time. That's what I want to have a quick conversation around, is like, why was that such an important piece of the puzzle? Austin, you mentioned before you didn't want it to be like every other boring marketing podcast, but why over-index on entertainment value?
It's a good question. My answer is not that complicated. I mean, I am a podcast listener myself, and I know that people's attention spans are really short. And if one of the things that we have going into this project is, hey, we would like to use some of these clips for social media, for LinkedIn, I want it to be stuff that's engaging and that's, feels fun, that represents kind of who we are and our personality. But then I guess a big part of it would just be like differentiation. I think I said already that there's a lot of boring business podcasts out there.
Tons of them.
And I mean, I say that with all respect, because I think that, there's some great hosts out there doing really excellent work. And I don't want to like belittle any of the work that other people are doing. But it's like, if someone has a really big audience and they're talking about marketing all the time, it's hard to go in and just kind of compete with that, right? If there's an existing product and a really strong, solid interview-based podcast out there, my idea was how do we just do something that has a little bit of a different flair and also something that kind of fits our personality as an agency. I think we're, as an agency, very approachable, professional, and research-based. And so when we thought about the podcast, it's like, let's design something that's approachable and professional and research based, and that's kind of where we landed with the game idea as like a really solid landing point for that.
I will disrespect the bad podcast. You're no disrespect, but I'm completely happy to be the bad guy. Yeah, there's a lot of people who just blab and have nothing original or interesting to listen to. And I think original is one of those big words, right? I heard the phrase sofa a few years ago. Political commentator and sports commentator Clay Travis, he had said it, and I thought that really resonated. The idea of if you are writing something that is smart, original, funny, authentic, that writing, filming, talking, things along those lines, those are like types of rules to live by in content creation, especially in an avenue where you're trying to create visibility to people for the first time. And that's the big thing. If you're trying to capture some interest and you're putting something out on social, or somebody's stumbling across your content for the first time, they may not be in the middle of search for a new marketing agency or, I need a new rebrand or things along those lines. What's an avenue that we can continue to draw interest from audiences that we want to speak to? And this is what that podcast fills a need for from Hinge's perspective. And I'm guessing John will get to at some point today, like metrics and reasons why we can track success and things along those lines. But just from the high level, it's like, let's create something that's different. And that's the biggest thing. Different to an audience that we know we want to speak to.
I know that podcast listeners love their frameworks. So the SOFA framework for everybody that's listening out there. So let's move on to our next clip that we have. And this one is from episode 8, which was a live podcast, our first live podcast that we did. And this was at the Association for Accounting Marketing's Summit Conference, which was in Phoenix, I believe.
You were there, John.
Year. I was there. Yep. I'm just trying to keep it all straight in my head. And as part of that conference, we did a pop-up podcast studio, and we did some man-on-the-street style interviews. And I pulled this clip from Melissa Taylor. Austin, this was your quick interview with Melissa. And one of the I want to show this just to kind of showcase that podcasting is a viable thing to do at these conferences. But the subject matter that Melissa talks about, I think, is one of the most important topics in professional services marketing today.
All right, so who am I here with?
Hey, Melissa Taylor with Melton & Melton down in Houston.
All right, so what is your main pivotal story from the conference this year?
Trust is your North Star. With everything that we're doing in marketing, business development, communications, anything under that role, if we don't have trust within the firm, then there's nothing that we do that matters. We can have all the knowledge with the tech stack, we can have all the skill sets in the world, but if we don't have our partners' trust, there's no reason for us to have any of that skills.
So what's one thing you learned about building that trust? I know there's been a lot of great presentations that have touched on that topic. Have you taken away anything a little practical on building trust across your company?
Oh man, consistency, integrity is just key. Do what you say what you do. And then the old phrase matters. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I just think, your core values, just letting those shine through is really what's just it's going to let yourself shine who you are. And then just will perpetuate that trust even further.
Wise words.
So let's have a quick conversation around trust real quick. Why, Austin, I guess let's start with you since you're the man on the street here. Why do you think Melissa immediately jumped to trust, and what are you hearing about trust in relation to professional services marketing today?
Yeah, I mean, I think having been there at the conference and having listened to a lot of the same keynotes that Melissa listened to, it makes sense why she said that. And I think it resonated with everybody. I think right now, every marketer is facing a monumental challenge, which is that we can't do what we do successfully as marketers by ourselves, right? Really good professional services marketing requires bringing in those experts inside of your company and getting them to express and document and share their expertise as subject matter experts. But the bridge to get to that is so difficult. And I think it actually, this became my pitch to speak at AIM, which got accepted next
Hey,
year, to talk about how do we
let's
more
go.
effectively engage with the subject matter experts at our company. I think she's all over it in terms of building trust as like a very foundational point. I think there's other things there, that are also important, which I'll touch on in my speech, which will be, around systems and processes and some of the things she was mentioning about consistency. But at the end of the day, marketers, we need the support of our subject matter experts. And if they don't trust you, if they don't feel like you're going to be doing a good job or taking their, and sometimes in some circumstances, very technical or very sensitive information about what you can share and what you can't share, if you mishandle that, it can break trust, right? And so as marketers, we have to be very cautious about that. We have to be very careful, and we have to let the experts know that we have their best intentions in mind. We're not just using them to, do marketing stuff for the company. We truly invested in them as people as well. And so I loved the theme that Melissa brought out in that little moment there in that little street interview. And honestly, it was kind of a spark that has stuck with me since the conference.
Know you, like you, trust you. I know, John, you say that quite often in some of your content as well, but it's so on point here, whether you're talking about internal key stakeholders or frankly, just professional services buyers. We're not selling Coke or Pepsi here, right? And I am making fun also here of the fact that Coke just pumped out a AI slop video that has resonated in terms of jokes around the podcast and video circuits. But trust is so key. If we are misleading internally or externally what our goals are, our messages are, our values are, things along those lines, you can torpedo trust in a moment, in a second. And I really loved this one. This was probably my favorite of the interviews that we did. Melissa absolutely knocked it out of the park. Shout out Melissa Taylor. And I think in general, though, it's a theme that needs to be carried forward in 2026 more than ever. And if we as marketers put a good amount of effort into thinking, hey, is this content that I'm putting together, or is this request putting them together, is it maintaining that trust barrier or that trust element, or are we helping to build trust? That's a great self-question to think about when you're looking forward and building your campaigns and executing on your tactics.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I recall just recently I did actually a full podcast episode on breaking biz dev around building trust at scale. And the trusted advisor associates, they have this trust equation, and they broke it down into their component parts. So it was like credibility, reliability, and intimacy, professional intimacy over your self-orientation. So how narcissistic are you essentially, right? Like, and then the higher that is, the more it kills your trustworthiness.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. We kind of went through that, but then we also brought in a clip from Melina Palmer, who's the host of the Brainy Business podcast, and she introduced something that I thought was really interesting: the concept of a vulnerability loop, where you share something vulnerable about yourself, and then that creates an environment where your counterpart in whatever situation you're in feels like they want to share something vulnerable back
About
with
them.
you.
Yep.
And that sharing of vulnerabilities is one of those key building blocks of trust. So these were some awesome clips that I think our listeners, and if you've found value in any of these clips or were hooked by that Jeopardy or that marketing tactics draft, go back and check out those episodes on YouTube. But I'd love, guys, to shift our conversation today to the next segment, and this is the importance of personality in marketing. Over the course of this last year, personality has grown in terms of its importance in marketing. And so the big question that I think we can kind of jump off with is, why is personality so important in marketing today? But first, I want to share a few short clips showcasing some of the personality that we've seen on the Spiraling Up podcast.
Oh boy, here we go.
In today's episode of Spiraling Up, Google's VO3 is here, and I'm convinced we're doomed. It's over. Our team is going to discuss, and then we're going to be joined by Megan Battaglia, VP of Marketing at one of the fastest growing B2G firms in the country, for a game of B2G power plays. Welcome, everyone. This is Spiraling Up with Hinge.
I did not
and
approve
one more
this.
thing. I'm not really Austin, or am I? Haha, you can be the judge.
AI Austin. AI Austin was ahead of his time.
Oh gosh, I don't know. We included that as an Easter egg in that episode. I don't know how many people actually saw
Only
that.
a few people.
It was
had
at
to
the
roll
end
back.
of like a 60-minute episode. So yeah, that's tough.
Okay, so maybe there is not so much personality in that video, and that's kind of the point. So this next video that we have, I think, is a little bit better of an example of personality in marketing.
In today's episode of Spiraling Up, Google's VO3 is here, and I'm convinced we're doomed. It's over. Our team is going to discuss, and then we're going to be joined by Megan Battaglia, VP of Marketing at one of the fastest growing B2G firms in the country, for a game of B2G power plays. Welcome, everyone. This is Spiraling Up with Hinge.
If we A/B tested those two leads, which one do you think would win?
Yeah, I mean, who says the robots are going to replace us? Come on. I still got
Exactly.
the edge over a robot any day.
So, Joe, you're not getting out of this personality hazing. So we're going to. Okay,
Can you say
maybe
that?
not hazing. So we're gonna take a look at one other video that showcases personality, and then we'll have a conversation around this. This is really fun. So this is Slam Poet Joe.
These are the 10 things we hate about your website. I hate the way you start. No clear idea in sight. Your homepage headlines dimming all the light. I hate your art direction, so bland and so plain, and navigation menus causing endless pain. I hate no filters there on content vast and wide, and meager case studies where impact loves to hide. I hate the expert bios, so brief, so unrevealing. No names on thought leadership, no human feeling. I hate your lack of video, a missed and silent plea, and career pages blank for all the world to see. But mostly, I hate the way I don't hate you, SEO. Though they claim you're dead, it doesn't show. Not even close, not even a little bit, not even at all.
Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable stuff.
Thank you. Applaud myself.
Bravo, Joe. Bravo.
Thank you. It was great running back the old thespian days of Joe.
In one of the earlier episodes of Spiraling Up, we took a bash at LinkedIn, right? So I wanted to pull up this reaction. This will be a reaction to a reaction clip. We're living in a meta world these days.
This is like Inception.
Exactly. So let's take a look at some of the cringiest aspects of LinkedIn.
Austin, you sent around a funny video earlier in the week. Before I say more, Austin, how about you pull up the video that you sent around to kind of kick us off here?
All right, let's take a watch at this.
My ex moved on within a week with my best friend's mom. And at first, I was totally crushed. But the more that I thought about it, I realized that I had failed to conduct a proper competitive analysis. Here's how that heartbreak taught me everything that I need to know about B2B sales.
B2B sales.
1, I assumed I was the only vendor in the pipeline. Nope. Barbara was there. 2, I neglected to assess the competitive landscape. Sometimes your customer is wanting to go with a more mature option, somebody that's been around for longer, like your best friend's mom. Great salespeople know that deals don't go cold without reason. And if they suddenly walk away, chances are they found a better alternative. And sometimes it's Barbara. Hashtag B2B sales. Hashtag know your market. Hashtag love where you work.
Had to get in that third hashtag.
Hey, newsflash. LinkedIn's still cringy. If anything, I think it's getting worse. We talked about in that episode the idea of how LinkedIn was already pushing AI generated prompts, like in terms of what your content was. It's like, type something out and let LinkedIn help refine what your message is. But I will say there are a few folks across the board on LinkedIn that are just great follows. I mean, the people that put out original, it's the sofa content, right, that we were talking about earlier in this episode. And that stuff still resonates. But boy, the AI slop just continues to take it over.
I think there was one point where LinkedIn was asking people to contribute to AI articles, and they were just stealing everyone's IP. Gentlemen, let's turn to our next segment of the episode where we dig into the data a little bit. And I don't think we need to spend too much time on this, but I think that it's important for us to kind of show that, at Hinge, there is an emphasis on research and data in driving decision making, and the podcast is no exception. So, over the course of this past year, I think the podcast has generated thousands of audio downloads and tens of thousands of video views for Hinge. We don't need to get into any specifics, but I think that what might be worthwhile for our podcast listeners to tune into is what were some of the experiments that we did over the course of the last year, and how did the data drive our decision making? Joe, what do you think? What was one of the big experiments that stood out to you over the course of this year?
Show format. Absolutely. We talked about in the earlier part of this episode, how did we want to structure this unboring podcast? Like, how could we take advantage of things like the algorithms, YouTube's algorithm, audio listeners, behavioral habits, things like that. And we knew that we wanted to be able to provide a variety of different type of content that could, in a sense, be chopped up and repurposed. Shout out to the Jeopardy question. I figure that's why you included that one, John. Yeah. But the big factor here, though, was like, well, how do we take advantage of all these things? And so our original idea was to lead with an intro, use typical podcast type intro. Austin comes in and drops a big in today's episode. And in that circumstance, that was an experiment. We also learned that YouTube really wants people to be hooked from the jump. And if you're wasting 10 seconds saying in, while we liked the bit, it was not helping us on the YouTube algorithm. So we've changed some of that piece of our episode. The location of our pivotal story, for example, which was going for that whole 10 to 15 minute clip length that YouTube or a social platform could potentially be a great taking off point. We had that in front of our interviews, but what we were finding was people were just skipping past that to get to the interviews. So while we haven't canned pivotal story, in fact, it's still a big key piece of how we're going to create content for this podcast. It has been typically moved to the end of the episode. And we learned that just through looking at metrics and testing and things along those lines.
Yeah, and that goes back to so the original, I think the original idea for the podcast that I had was something along the lines of professional services marketing today. And we were going to just basically do pivotal stories. And it was going to be a much shorter podcast that was just like, hey, here's kind of the main story in professional services today. And it could be research based, it could be stuff that we've published, it could be stuff that other people had published. But generally the idea was like, we're going to kind of make it like a news thing, like our blog is. And I think that was like the major switch, because I was really attached to that idea of like, I want it to be relevant. I want it to be kind of talking about topics that are like in the news. But what we found is that what our listeners liked most and why they came and stuck around was for the guests and the game. Go figure. Sort of the main thing that we had kind of like pivoted towards into our podcast strategy. So yeah, I'm not even sure if pivotal stories will really stay as a part of the podcast going forward. Maybe it will. I think we're going to keep testing things as we get better and better at this, and keep gauging what our listeners like to hear and what kind of content they find most interesting.
Well, I think from my perspective, one of the big learnings was honestly the YouTube Shorts, and the learning that the audience on YouTube for those shorts was predominantly male. I think it's 25 to 35.
Yeah. Young men. Yeah.
Young men, yeah.
Who are not going to be the typical folks we're selling to.
Right. And so I thought that was such a key finding, and that influenced a shift away from YouTube Shorts and focusing a little bit more on LinkedIn, where Hinge's target audience likes to hang out. So that stood out to me as kind of one of the biggest data-driven decisions that we've made so far. But Joe, you mentioned, talking about the episodes that people like and people want to listen to and watch. And so I pulled the top 3 episodes based on the engaged views on YouTube.
Oh, interesting.
So that was the metric that we used. And the top one, Joe, if you want to give it a guess, what do you think the top episode was?
Engaged views, marketing tactics trap.
Oh, that was number 3. Very close. And so that was the 3rd highest. The 2nd highest was the marketing lessons from the Super Bowl. So that was a fun episode too. And then coming in at number 1, the most engaging episode of the year for the Spiraling Up podcast. Drum roll, please. 10 things we hate about websites.
I knew it.
And I think, at least from my perspective, I would love to hear it from y'all, but I think that episode worked really well because it showcased examples from the Hinge portfolio, and it was very visually focused.
Yeah,
the show and tell for sure.
It's something that everyone in our audience can relate to. Like everybody has a website. You know what I mean? We could make some episodes about CRM. We could make some episodes about business development or maybe like specific marketing tactics. Not every marketer is going to relate to each and every one of those things, but they will almost always resonate to my company has a website and it's got to be better. I think everybody can resonate with that. And I was really proud of that episode. That was one where we didn't have a guest. We put our heads together and kind of went through some of the latest thinking that our experts had published on our website. I did a couple of interviews kind of around the Hinge office, like talking about the things that really were important today. And that top 10 list really had a lot of love put into it ahead of time. And we were really proud to show a lot of the examples in that episode. Oftentimes, they were not websites that Hinge had designed, but many of them were. And I think that more and more, at least me, I'm really proud of the work that we do at Hinge, especially on the website front. And so I was really glad that people found that episode really helpful and that people have gotten a lot of value out of it.
All right. Well, as we bring this section of our episode to a close, what can listeners expect heading into the new year from the Spiraling Up podcast?
Good question. Joe, why don't you get us started?
I thought Austin was just going to come in and say, Joe, what kind of budget are you giving me?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think budget's actually a fun thing to kind of point to. And we were just talking about things like metrics like engaged views and visibility. One big thing that we've really focused in on this podcast is tracking the success of it through a variety of metrics. We've got attribution tied to it in the form of our CRM on Salesforce. It's a campaign of which we're running underneath our larger digital marketing efforts, and we're able to measure some success. Interestingly enough, this podcast has generated well more than what we've spent on it in terms of opportunities and value tied to that. And I'm sure that's the clippable moment of this episode. And how do you do that? Well, there's a variety of things. It's the emails that we're sending, lands on landing pages, anecdotal references that we give attribution to. So there's a lot of ways that marketers can and absolutely should track the successes of their various tactics in order to measure ROI. But yeah, at the end of the day, like when somebody says, one of my fellow partners or Mary Blanche and I's fellow partners, the best way of saying that, comes up to us and says, what's the value of this? I've got metrics to prove it. So when you can prove things, then you can probably increase the budget. I would say that I think that the Spiraling Up podcast is going to continue to push the envelope in terms of in-person. In fact, we have gone through a process recently where we are applying to conferences with the concept of actually running a podcast on stage. And while I can't announce the conference yet, the Spiraling Up podcast will have an onstage presence at a regional industry conference next year in front of close to 500 or 600 people. So we're doing things. We're getting bigger. We're getting bolder. And it's going to be a blast in 2026.
Yeah, that's exciting. I can say where my head is out is really the kind of guests that we're trying to invite onto the podcast. We had an excellent roster of guests this year, many of whom have published books this year, doctor, PhD level people that have put a lot of research into their work. And I love that. I think one way I plan to balance things in terms of our guests in the upcoming years, I don't want to lose sight of talking to practitioners and getting more CMOs, directors of marketing, even marketing managers on the podcast, because they are the ones at the end of the day who we hope are watching this podcast and finding value in it. And I know we can all benefit from talking to our peers and getting more of like an inside behind the scenes look at the day-to-day challenges that they're facing, they're thinking about. Because I think everybody will resonate that. Even us, we are a professional services firm ourselves, trying to grow our business and trying to get out there and build new relationships. And so I want to talk to more marketers who are in that seat and just get to know what they're doing, and kind of, especially those that we can perceive to be more on the innovative side. I'm really looking forward to the conversations with them in the coming year.
Shameless plug. Are you a CMO? Would you like to talk about what you do on a day-to-day basis? Well, we've got the podcast for you.
Yeah.
Come have fun with us and play a marketing game on the Spiraling Up podcast.
All right, everybody. Bonus segment here for today's episode. As you know, Hinge and the Spiraling Up podcast benefits greatly from our work with John Tyerman at Red Cedar Marketing, and his work in helping us not just launch this podcast, plan the podcast, but on an ongoing basis, he helps us kind of make everything happen, make sure we're staying organized and thinking forward and getting better and better. And John is actually in the middle of a research project right now, and it's all about how people who are running business podcasts themselves, how much value they're getting out of it, and what kind of trends are happening out there in the marketplace. So, John, I thought for today's pivotal story, we could just get some insights into your research and sort of understand what you've learned so far.
Thanks, Austin. Yeah, the audience that I serve, business podcasters, if you go out there and if you look up stats about business podcast hosts or business podcast listeners, there's not a whole lot of research out there. So I really needed to do this kind of research for my own company and my own market research. But I know that business podcasters out there are going to find this valuable too. So right now we're looking at business podcast hosts. What are some of the benefits of podcasting? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities for podcasters? But then on the listener side as well, like people who listen to business podcasts, not just podcast listeners in general, but people who listen to business podcasts. How do they find new shows? Why do they listen? How many shows are on their roster at any given time? So those are some of the questions that we wanted to answer with this research. So when we asked business podcasters to really identify all the different ways that their podcast makes an impact on their business, 70% said their show helps build familiarity and trust with buyers. And I know that we just talked about that earlier on this episode, but I thought that was one of the big leading benefits that a lot of business podcasters come out with. 60% said that their show helps establish new relationships with prospective buyers. There's a lot of lead generation that's going on. And then another 60% said that they can directly attribute sales opportunities to the podcast. So those are some of the big leading benefits of a podcast. I'm curious, Austin, Joe, from where you sit, do you think the Spiraling Up podcast has contributed to increased trust with buyers, new relationships, new opportunities in the sales pipeline?
100%. We talked about it a little bit earlier in this episode. We've been able to attribute direct opportunity generation, proposal value, and so forth to the Spiraling Up podcast. So at the end of the day, quote, question, whatever it might be, was this worth it? Sure, absolutely. If you care about sending proposals out, I guess, in professional services and business to business.
And if you don't, what are you doing?
What's sending proposals taught me about B2B sales. Yeah, I mean, it definitely, John, I think it is a great tool across the funnel in terms of seeing the benefits of our visibility increase, the trusting in what Hinge is, and even myself and Austin and Mary Blanche. I mean, all three of us have been accepted to speak at conferences and other elements within the last few weeks.
Nice.
And we used the Spiraling Up podcast as reasons why we should be considered. And that's huge. Without those types of validation pieces, and this is a huge validation tool. So your metrics definitely didn't surprise me that you were just rattling off there in terms of what sort of benefits podcast hosts are seeing.
I'll say too, this is outside of the metrics, but just in client relationships, shout out to all my clients and Hinge's clients that listen to the Hinge's that listen to the Spiraling Up podcast. I've had a number of client engagements where they've mentioned, "Oh yeah, I heard you say that on an episode." And I'm like, It just warms my heart, because as much as we might be thinking about growth and new clients, that trust and relationship building with our existing clients, I think, the podcast plays a huge role in that. And the things that I learn in the work that I do every day with our clients and that I learn from our team members, that fuels kind of some of the direction and the content that we produce here. And then we've had some incredibly smart guests come on that I have just grown as a professional by sitting in a room, being able to interview them and get some like new ideas and creative juices flowing. It's been remarkably helpful in terms of how I present myself as an advisor, how we work with our team and sort of client relationships. It makes a big deal.
That's amazing. So obviously podcasting, there's a lot of different benefits. I asked the business podcast hosts to identify their top challenges. Like what's the hardest part about hosting a business podcast? The number one response was expanding their audience beyond their existing network. Mm-hmm. So, growing the podcast, growing the listener base. But beyond that, what I found really interesting was between 40 and 45% talked about either measuring ROI or monetizing the podcast. At least in my experience, talking with business owners, consultants who want to launch their own podcast, I think that there is a misconception that you launch a podcast, get a bunch of downloads, and get a sponsorship very quickly. And that's the path to revenue. However, lead generation is the fastest path. 60% identified that new business comes from the podcast. So there are those that are finding ways to make it work.
I mean, it's not a surprise to me that people listed the ROI thing as a challenge. I think any professional services marketer out there, regardless of the channel, right, podcast aside, people are struggling with ROI. And we've talked about that. We've covered that extensively on the podcast. It has been validated again in the upcoming high growth study that marketers, even with sophisticated technology at their fingertips, really have a hard time of drawing those lines between like, this is the level of effort invested in a particular marketing campaign or the expenses, and then attributing that to actual leads and revenue. That is a hard skill to develop. And, you have to have a good mastery of your technology and systems. You have to have a lot of commitment. You have to have buy-in from your whole team. Mm-hmm. It's really tough. I'm actually surprised that more people didn't say just like that one of their challenges was the effort going into planning and kind of the time it takes to get guests. And I would advise anyone thinking about starting a podcast who's like thinking about it is, how are you going to build that system for sustainability? Yes. Because before you start thinking about ROI and leads and monetization, you need to think about how are you going to make it past year 1? How are you going to make it past year 2? How are you going to make it to episode 100?
We were just looking at time tracking towards this podcast. At the end of the day, it's like, what's that time worth? Could we be doing something else with that time, for example? No, by the way, we wouldn't be doing anything else. But in this circumstance, we're also planning for what it's going to look like as a load on us in the new year. And we were able to kind of break down numbers where Mary Blanche and myself were spending 2 to 3 hours a week on average. Nice. And we didn't record every week. But Austin, as our marketing head at Hinge, was spending a bit more. He was in the 3 to 4, sometimes a bit more in terms of what that looks like. Okay. So you've got 3 hosts on this episode, though. Right. So, for example, you reduce some of that burden. Might be a little bit more if there was 2 hosts, or certainly more if there was just 1 host in terms of level of effort. And certainly, John, you've helped us as well, right? There's time that clearly goes into the production side of this. So we're mostly talking about it from your subject matter experts who have to get together and plan out what we're going to talk about so it doesn't suck. In this setup, it is one of these circumstances where you have to look at each picture, and that's where that whole structure is key. And if you can create that structure going into this, episode 100 will absolutely look better than episode 1. You're going to learn along the way, but you're going to be able to get to episode 100, because a lot of times these podcasts, if you're not thinking about how we're going to track our success metrics, if we're not thinking about how we're going to be successful in doing it on an ongoing basis, they won't make it to episode 100. They might not even make it to episode 10. So those are all really great insights. And John, I appreciate you thoroughly for helping us on the production side, but also for bringing some of these research and data points to this discussion today.
Well, John, thank you so much for sharing kind of that data with us. Excited to see where the report lands, and we'll be sure to send it out to everybody when you've got it all packaged up. Thanks for giving us that early preview.
This has been awesome, guys. Thanks for having me on.
We appreciate you, John. Thanks for doing some of the legwork to pull all this together for us.
Yeah, I'm excited for the next year. I'm excited to keep the podcast growing.
And so if you made it this far, give the show a like, a follow, that little plus sign at the top of your Apple podcast app, that little plus sign on Spotify. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment below with your favorite moment from the Spiraling Up podcast in 2025. Happy holidays, and we'll see you next year.